All right. So from outer space, in a different galaxy, actually, we're having Marnix. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. I'm doing fantastic, actually.
It's either that amazing background or else creeping darkness around you that is shrinking.
Uh,
All
that, that,
right.
that, could, that could be a philosophical metaphor.
All right, let's talk about you, buddy. I would just let you introduce yourself, probably. It's going to be easier.
Well, I'm Marnix Rekkers. I'm a senior concept artist currently working on Stellaris, and my whole career basically had to do with science fiction work, science fiction projects. Even though I also worked on other projects like FIFA and Crusader Kings, and that was when I was working at Opus Arts, and Opus Arts specifically currently focused on mostly creatures and characters with some environment work. But they are very skilled in a very specific way, and I learned a lot from them, even though I have a completely different skill set and a different focus. And I think that my first actual job is the one I got in 2016 when I was working on In the Black, which is still in development. It's a hard science space combat game.
Nice.
And that's where I really learned the cool stuff and why certain designs actually work well and why they don't, because it's not just about making a fancy picture, it's about understanding mechanics of real world physics, real world engine and everything. And that's where my fascination and understanding you can actually make money with this on not just like a hobby but actual, as a job, actually started to materialize. And from then on I've been working in the industry, as you might say.
Yeah, I remember I was following you when we were both students, probably. That's when I discovered you. I was like, who is that hard surface nerd doing a crap ton of gym at the same time? What's going on? It was very nice.
Yes, that was a couple of years ago when we connected.
Yeah. I don't remember. 2016 seems pretty coherent when we connected on Facebook a while ago. Nice.
That's how that's the interesting thing. That's how I got my first real gig in the industry, because
through Facebook?
Through Facebook, I was posting some of my spaceships online, and there's one guy called David Westman. At the time, that was just another guy, an American, who was like, hey, we're working on the space game. We have basically no budget, so these are the things you can expect us, but we really like your stuff. So would you still want to work with us? And I'm like, all right, sure, sounds fun. And they, even though they had no budget, they were capable of paying me, which was something I have never experienced when people ask you to work for free. But somehow I had this great feeling with this person trying to hire me for this gig. And apparently he was not just some dude who wanted to make a game. He was a game development teacher at a university here in the Netherlands. But he also had a long history of industry experience. He worked he became a game tester at LucasArts and became a game designer there. And he worked on X-Wing, Starfighter, and those early Star Wars games. And he also worked as one of the lead designers on Saints Row and Saints Row 2. And he also worked and he had a couple of other projects like that. So by the time I understood who I was working with is the time I understood that my work was starting to gain some attention online.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because a lot of you getting jobs has been by sharing sketches.
Yep.
Even more recently, we're going to talk about that a bit later.
Yes.
So, yeah, you got that gig. Then you got Opus Arts, if I'm not mistaken.
That was a while later.
Okay.
Because I first went back to university to do my bachelor's and learn about game development. Because even though I got the opportunity to work on something really, really cool, I did learned to understand that I was lacking just the basic understanding of everything I have to deal with, especially as a concept artist working with game developers.
Yeah.
So I went back to university where I learned more drawing skills, a better understanding of fundamentals, even though I still think I lack heavily in that department, but that might be just the way how I work, where I'm just never satisfied with any sketches that I make. But we actually, but I learned 3D. I learned a lot better 3D. I learned some form of animation and rigging. I learned VFX. I learned basically almost all possible disciplines, or at least, well, I had a taste of all the disciplines you have in game development. And we also learned to develop video games. So that's the first thing we actually did, is just get a basic understanding of drawing, of 3D, of visual design, the basic fundamentals of art, and stuff like that. And then try to apply it directly into developing a video game. And
Nice.
the first few were nothing to note of, but that's what you get from students. They just try stuff, and
you need to
sometimes it
start
works,
somewhere. It
sometimes
was the same for me. So yeah.
But the funny thing is, you only get a few weeks to develop those games. So within a few weeks, you have to develop something working and has a certain visual style, or at least some visuals that make it appealing or interesting to look at. And I'm surprised we actually pulled it off almost every time. And in our third year, when I was basically focused on concept art, you get a major team. Unfortunately, a lot of things went wrong behind the scenes, as a lot of programmers left the university at the time, which was unprecedented because usually it's the artist. And there was a complete falling out between the programmers and the designers, because designers kept changing goalposts. They kept
It's always
changing
like
things.
that at schools, I think.
Oh yeah, no, the programs actually hated it.
Yeah.
So we came up with the idea of setting up a after-school program called the Salt Mines, where everybody can join, and you have to do one thing if you join. That's either come there to rant about one person or project or whatever you have to rant about with completely guilt-free.
What?
Or give a 30-minute presentation about salt.
That's a weird concept. Okay.
It was a weird concept, but me and another artist and a few programmers actually found it very funny. So we actually did gather at some point and made a giant I made a giant presentation about salt and salt mines.
Okay.
That was really funny, but this was a couple of months into the project, and the issue was that we also kept coming back to some very weird decision when it came to art, and I just got pissed, and during one of the meetings where we had the outsourced artists complaining about how they put so much effort into it and we're not using their work, and at that point I basically snapped and I said, well, that's a problem on our side, nor your side. You don't get to decide those things. And let's keep it long story short. After that, I became a huge asshole. Started just being an asshole about a lot of those things, and because I just didn't want to deal with a lot of the bullshit, because it slogged down a big part of their process, and with everything else going on in the project, everything was shitty. Everybody hated what was going on. The team fell apart, and we were only left with 10 people, including me, to rebuild the project. And we were nearing one. Nearing one of the final semesters from our year to develop their game. And this is where the most incredible thing happened. Everybody wanted to do their thing, and we need this, we need that, we need to develop. But with only a team of 10 people, we could rebuild the entire game from the ground up in 8 weeks and released it. because one of the things we had to do was release a game. And the most incredible thing happened. Our game skyrocketed to the top charts of Steam at that time.
Really?
Yes. Thanks to the developer tools you have in Steam, you can see how many people are playing your game or downloaded your game. We saw that a total of 300,000 different accounts played our game. So we have at least 300,000 people playing our game. And the game is free. It's only 2 hours long. But even then, for a free game with no prior history of the developers or anything, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
And it's not even close to the... and it was not made in the style that I'm comfortable with my sci-fi stuff. It's a very painterly style with a very clean art style to give you a nice feel of the Scottish Hebrides during summer. So it's nothing compared to what I'm used to develop.
Is it still playable and accessible on Steam right now? What's the name?
It's still Sky.
Sky.
Yes, Sky.
Is it the game by that game company?
Nope.
No.
It's just a flying game. It's 2 hours long. It's on Steam.
Okay.
Let me type it. It's very simple.
Yeah, because I know the Sky by the creators of Journey, but
it's not that.
It's not that one.
I just typed it in. It's Sky.
I will put the link down below. No worries.
It's the Isle of Skye, basically where it was supposed to take place, and we had the whole combat system of a game. In that was what we were thinking at first. So we built this entire. We were planning and concepting this from some of the most craziest ideas to the more sensible ideas. Basically, it would be compared to Crimson Skies. Planes, combat planes with unique environments, unique visuals, some very unique approaches to what's essentially basically a combat game. But because we only had 8 weeks and we're only 10 people, without any programmers, we had to scrap anything related to combat.
Okay.
And I think that saved the game. And I might sound quite negative about the whole process and what else had happened during that time, but I can't really blame anybody in the project. It's considered. I mean, we were all students. Nobody had any experience yet. So all of this is.
That's a big achievement that you did while being a student already, and we've been talking about, and we're going to fast forward to your career now. But I guess it might have set a precedent for your career after to really help you, right?
I think so. I think because you will learn some some things that are not as quantifiable as you might think. You don't learn how to draw a line straight, like something that's visually there, but you learn how to deal with people. You learn how to deal with development, but you also learn the issues that development can run into, and where you can be part of the solution, where you can help things develop. You learn the feedback, you learn retrospective, you learn introspective. It's these very soft skills and dealing with other people. Like, you don't want to start yelling at people. That's because if you start yelling at people and start insulting them, that's basically the moment the team truly fell apart.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about last time when we were discussing about that interview. You wanted to talk a lot about professional attitude. This is something that is discussed heavily, both in our community, you are part of it, and also online at the moment. Of course, there's a way to see it as a job, and you are there to get money, but you are mainly there to help people, because that's how you help the team overall. Yeah,
that's one of the things that's yes, it is a job. So this is one of the important things. Yes, it's a job. You're there to earn money, but it's not just a job. You do this because it's something you really want to do. It is a really cool, really unique experience, and I want to make games because they've always been a form of some magic to me. As a child, I wasn't allowed to play a lot of games, so something about video games always has this allure of specialty to it. You know, unique worlds, unique stories, unique visuals. So something that nothing really else out there really has, and that's something that's always appealed to me. So, but a game is quite a difficult thing to build, just like a car. You don't have one guy just building an entire Volkswagen from the ground up. You know, you got more people involved in there. You got the designers, you got the people having to figure out what materials can be used. Like, all of these are very complex things. That's why it is important to understand that yes, it is a job. It's also something really cool, but it's also you're dealing with other people because you cannot do everything on your own. And maybe you only like to do one very specific thing, and maybe you're really good at it. And in the development of a video game, this can be tremendously helpful.
Yeah.
So understanding that there is a form of attitude and a form of understanding that that you need to work in this industry is, I think, a very, very important understanding, because you are going to deal with people, and projects sometimes have major development shifts. We've seen that before. We've seen that now with some major video game titles, like, for example, Dragon Age the Veilguard. That went from a Dragon Age game to a live service model to a multiplayer, a hero shooter, and then back to a narrative-driven game. I mean, it's been in development for more than 10 years.
Welcome to development hell.
Unfortunately, this is not a weird situation. It's especially not at BioWare, unfortunately. Like, BioWare, ever since I think ever since the last Mass Effect game or Mass Effect 3,
it was the same
I think.
already. It took a lot of time. It was very chaotic, if I recall correctly.
Yes, and they have been struggling with it for a very long time, with many projects came afterwards, and it's sad to see. And you see the amount of talent and people that then go in there, and you see that then something big changes and something has to be completely redone. And some very important people that could manage that situation just leave because they don't feel connected to their project anymore. And that's like, if it's just a job, you would not care for a cent about it because you're just getting paid, right?
Yeah.
But that highlights that there is definitely some sort of interest in wanting to do this, in wanting to create these games, in wanting to create this world. So yes, it's a job, but it's also a form of expression. It's also a certain cool thing that you're working on, and there's a lot of people, like hundreds of people. You at BioWare, for example, you work with a couple of hundred people working on something really, really cool, and that's you have to. That's one of those things that, yes, it is a job, but it's so much more than just a job.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to get emotionally invested in it. That you'll basically have a divorce when the game doesn't ship properly, but you also don't want to be so disingenuous, as long as I'm getting paid, I'm here kind of attitude, because that will affect the morality and the choices you make while developing it. And that's, I think, the subtle but highly important understanding of development and our job as artists to understand, like, don't be naive and get exploited, but also you are not there to make a quick buck. You're there to help create something absolutely unique and tremendously awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's the hardest part of the job. It has been personally. I think it has been for a lot of artists. It's really what you said. If you take things too personally, you're going to get sick to your stomach very fast, because Nothing against companies, by the way. It's just the way business works. They are going to be at some point decisions from people higher up there that you cannot control, of course, that are going to go against what you would personally have done. And people taking it too personally, it's the passion side of the job, quote unquote. They can become very sick and take it personally. And same when you work for a long time on a game and let's say it flops, it's normal to feel very bad because you've invested so much time. And I think it's not talked about that artists need to find ways to protect themselves against their own emotion. Because let's face it, when a game is about to flop, when a game flops, as a dev in advance, is very likely to flop generally. You got the data, you are the first person seeing the problems. And that's where you need, in that case, to switch more into, okay, I'm getting paid, next project is going to be better, we're going to learn from the lessons. But unless you are in such an extreme situation, you need to figure out a way to kindle the flame, because at the moment you start being there just for the paycheck, that's where the quality even of your work is going to drop, and they're going to sense it. You're not making as many efforts, you're not enthusiastic. It can affect the morale of the whole team around, it can contaminate everyone. And studios are extremely sensitive to that, actually.
Exactly, because the whole studio is built up by people, and people create things for other people. That's one of those things where it's very important to understand that the joy of video games and the joy of making them is a profoundly human experience, because we are the one trying those things out. It's basically a sort of form of research and development, and then publishing what you've developed in that time.
Yeah.
And and a big part is human experience. I mean, look at Half-Life, for example. What they managed to do, even with all the things that went wrong behind the scenes, they developed something absolutely incredible, and the entire team really loved the project. And this is, and that you can see it. One of the biggest advancements, the most impactful part that Half-Life 2 actually brought was to graphics cards, where they learned that the reason why a lot of they couldn't make their game look right, it's because their graphics card could not calculate daylight properly. It could calculate light, but not daylight, and they figured out it was that the graphics card's way of calculating it, the whole system was wrong about it. So they went to the graphics card manufacturers and said, "Your math is wrong." And imagine that some software. Imagine that because they wanted to create something cool, they had to go to a hardware manufacturer and say, "What you're doing is wrong." Like that's a form of understanding what is what you need and what's out there, and things that should change for that fact. That this is. If you look at other games from 2004, nothing looks as good as Half-Life Outdoor. Half-Life 2 Outdoor looks bloody beautiful.
It was at least 3 to 4 years in advance compared to all the other games at the time. It was incredible, and I love those kind of nerdy discussions with you. You always have some nerdy anecdotes like that. That's amazing. But yeah, it really shows when some devs are really interested in mastery. And it kind of reminds me, have you seen all the discourse surrounding Threat Interactive recently? The YouTube channel?
No, yes, the one about the Unreal Engine.
Yeah, it's that Unreal Engine game artist guy who is ripping apart most of the lazy devs today and showing that Unreal 5 is probably one of the worst things that happened to the industry, because devs are becoming lazy. Nothing is optimized anymore. Games from 10 years ago looks arguably technically better than now. While we did not have all of that, what happened to the devs? And it really reminds me of what they did for Half-Life, actually.
Yeah, and it's also exactly the same issue as with like, all right, so 10 to 15 years ago, these games couldn't run 60 FPS on those machines and this hardware, but now with all the new hardware, they are not looking as incredible or unique, and they still have the same issues, and they're not like, what happened? Like, nothing has changed in that way. Like, it's like they make games to have cool screenshots and nothing else, and that's a very odd thing to say when you think about it. Like, because there's so much work going into games nowadays. Like, I know Call of Duty on Call of Duty they spent 700 million in development costs, and it sells 41 million units a year. The last couple of Call of Duty games sold so many, so
that's like more than $2 billion in revenue, something like that.
2.8 billion.
Holy crap!
So Call of Duty spent 700 million, and yes, they also earn 2.8 billion each year only in the sales of on just shipping the game itself. So yes, they say games are getting so much more expensive. Because they just throw money at the problem instead of actually addressing the problem. I don't know if you've seen the breakdown of some of the models for the Silent Hill remake, but I saw the topology of the Pyramid Head, and it's the worst topology ever. It's almost like they actively went out of the way to make a giant pyramid extra bad. It's baffling how horrible that was built, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it was a test model that never got removed. Maybe they were trying something out, and then they were like, "It looks good enough. Let's keep it in because the engine runs it, so we don't have to clean it up or something like that." Right?
Yeah,
like,
it reminds
we
me.
don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it reminds me of that meme of the sandwich in Starfield that was arguably 60,000 polygons, something like that, just for a sandwich. I don't know if that thing has been confirmed or if it was just a meme, but if this is really in game, that's something that probably sneaked through the quality control or something like that.
I think there is a fundamentally worse problem going on. Then I think it has to do with priority set and and the goals of the program. Like, every game is trying to be as broadly as possible nowadays, and this is probably not because the devs want it that way. It's because there is a corporate mandate to do the same thing as Call of Duty does, but the only reason Call of Duty sells so much is because nobody else is doing it, and it has brand recognition. They have around 10 studios working on each Call of Duty game nowadays, so they can deliver each year one Call of Duty game, even though the development of one of those games is around 3 years. And so they have at least 3 studios working full time on every next installment, and they have around 3 years to develop that. And I mean, one of the studios is Raven Software, so they have the absolute skill to do that. It's like one of the most legendary studios out there that have the capability, like Black Magic or something, to always do that.
Yeah.
But you see, I barely hear any direct horror stories of completely mismanagement in those studios. So there is clearly some understanding in those studios where they understand how the development process works, how the system works, that's why they are consistently capable of delivering a game every 2 years, even though we only see a new game every year. And that's because in-house in those studios, they do something right.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good transition into what we wanted to talk about being niche, for example. You are seeing like tons of studios are trying to appeal to mass market, and it's like one size fits none eventually. And it can be totally transposed to artists wanting to permeate the industry. You are the example of being uber super mega niche, doing only hard surface nerdy stuff, and that discussion is going to be nerdy. It's already that shows how niche you are. And
It's not that I didn't try other stuff. I worked for OpenSarts for 3 years, and I worked on illustrations, environment illustrations for Crusader Kings, and I learned quite a lot. I worked directly together with Bjorn Hurry. We worked on the next project of the developers that made that game. It Takes Two.
Oh.
They also worked on the studio that also made A Way Out. So we did some work for. I think it's in the trailer, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if
let's be safe regarding NDAs.
But we worked on that project, and specifically there, I did the sci-fi stuff, and somebody else did the other stuff, and it's and we also worked on FIFA, and well, we worked on very specific things where I'm baffled that they specifically outsourced that part, but I guess they paid, so let's just do that work. And this was during the pandemic, so everybody was working from home. They still are. I still do. But yeah, that's what we had to do because a lot of projects were canceled or something like that. But still, big projects were still going on, so that's what you had to do. But I have always been hired for sci-fi projects. I've always worked on very small indie titles, very small projects, and sometimes a bigger project. And I've noticed that my work has been getting a lots of attention in circles surrounding.
Especially recently, yeah.
Yeah, I even saw my. I even was I was paying. I don't have a Reddit account, so a friend of mine said me, "Yo, check this out." And then on this Reddit forum, they were showing that this was Reddit for Armored Core 6. And they were showing one of my mechas I designed.
Pretty good.
Like, they should be part of it or something like that. I'm like,
oh my god, send a message to From Software.
I think that would be really cool if I could work with them at least on one project.
If you get in touch with them, I'm going to ask you to funnel a few mentees in Elden Ring and such. In that case.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, the Art Nest has when it comes to the fantasy character stuff, there are. You've trained up a couple of mentees that are
absolute monsters.
They started with, and now they have one mega portfolio piece that you only see by the top professionals. It's like, yes, no, if I have the chance, I'll funnel those people in. And
thank you.
I already did that with 2 other people to a project where I worked on for a while, but working on 2 full-time projects is just not doable. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. That's a discussion we got recently. I've been following your message in the mentorship discussion, and you're like, "Hey guys, I got a second job. That's amazing. I'm going to make a crap ton of money. That's cool." And 1 week after, no, that's too much work. I need to drop it.
The thing is, I actually planned it. I took quite a while to accept the projects because I really liked what the CEO was telling me about the project and what they were going for. And I'm like, okay, so this is an incredible cool project. I really wanted to do that. So when I noticed how efficient I was with this one project that I work on right now, I'm working on Stellaris. I work on the next big DLC. I thought, if I'm this efficient, I can definitely take that other project next to it, because I'm working full-time here. This is not gonna impact my workflow, because I can do this with the back of my hand, with almost, because I know what I'm doing. And that project is very specifically focused on something I am really, really good at. So I thought, 2 jobs. Why not? That should be easy.
What could go wrong?
So I signed the contract. I talked to the guy. The team is is really professional and very focused, so they know exactly what they're doing. So I was like, let's do this. Like, yes. And within a few days, I noticed that I was unable to focus or do the proper research or deliver at least a barely respectable quality of what I used to do when I'm doing my work. Like I took more than a day to do some simple sketch work, practicing some ideas while doing research. And that's the moment where I started to notice I'm taking a bit more time with the other project as well. And that's when I noticed, oh, this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
So I actually said to the guy, like, I actually have to decline because of this, and he's like quite understanding. Yeah, it's too much work. But I didn't just leave the project and say, all right, bye. I specifically made sure that he got in contact with a couple of other designers and artists. I asked some people I know who can do the job and some professionals, but I also reached out to the Art Nest to a couple of people because I know they are currently available.
Nice.
And that's a very powerful thing. And one of them just has sent me a message that he's starting Monday.
Is it Chris?
Yes, I think so.
Nice.
No, it's Casper.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. Specifically because he showed me, he made that drone concept
Yeah.
quality and how he approached it. I thought it was perfect for what these guys were doing. And I think he can definitely do the job. I did say to the people that I'm available in July again, because that's when this contract ends. That's when I can take on the extra job. But any full-time, long-term contracts, that's not going to do well. Like if it's work that I know I can do and it only takes a couple of days, that's something I can offload to the weekend. So small projects I can take on. But anything longer and bigger than that, that's just not going to be a possibility.
Yeah, it's always like that when you start freelancing and you start getting several opportunities. At the beginning, you are a bit gluttonous. Let's say you want to grab everything, and then you realize very fast, no, that's too much, because it's not just stacking another job. It's going to be exponentially harder for you to keep up with that. You're going to build fatigue. As you were saying, it's going to slow you down on your previous job and the new one. And it's compounding over time, and at some point you just crumble.
Yeah, and luckily I noticed the signs very quickly. Like, holy shit, something is wrong. But this is also a thing where I think professional attitude is so important. Like, I didn't leave the project and I didn't want to share it because I want the money. No, it's like I want to help these people. The project is awesome, but if I am not capable of delivering the quality and focus that I am known for and what I'm capable of, I better make sure that they have somebody else that can take on the project and has the capabilities of delivering as well.
Yeah.
So at the moment I saw myself slipping, was the first thing that I did was make a list of people that I know who can do it, and then send those contacts to the guy at the studio and say, if I have to leave the project, have these people, like so they have somebody who can help them do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. Like, we aren't trying to compete, we're trying to help each other. We like to work together. It's not like I want to be the art director or the big dog at the studio and I'm not going to allow anybody else to take my position. I want to make awesome things, and all of us want to make awesome things, and it's better if we then can work together on making some awesome things. Like, no way I'm gonna work on a project where I have to design castles. Although I think it would be cool. Why hire me? I know a lot more people who, it's not my specialty, but I know a lot of people who can do that a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And I know already a few from the Art Nest who could do that.
Yeah. And that's really what we are building at the Art Nest. I want at some point, and that's what I'm starting to do. I'm reaching out to studios, and every time some mentee, you included me in a former mentee, is reaching out to studios, I want really to centralize those job offers and getting them to be shared across the whole group. And it's very obvious that at some point we are going to treat the artist as if it was an outsourcing studio, not as an outsourcing studio per se. It's probably not going to become one unless some people like you, being a mega specialist at hard surface, could supervise hard surface tasks, and we could find other specialists like that. But that's the goal, to centralize the job and get offer, because there's a pool of talent. And it gets back to what we are discussing also. You are getting a lot of attention right now. You are also going after it, which is very important. And there's definitely that option of outsourcing the work that I think there's a lot of mystics surrounding that. Even me included, I was always scared about the idea of maybe outsourcing my work. I think eventually it comes down to that very simple idea of, if you have more work than you can handle, never refuse an opportunity. Just find someone to delegate to it and take a little cut, or even no cut at all. You don't really care at the beginning, but just get in the habit of probably not saying no to a client, giving it to someone you trust, making sure the studio is okay with that, of course. And that's how progressively you're going to have two or three friends that are helping you. And at some point, you're going to build a structure when it runs very well. And it's just about, even when your schedule is full, keep applying, keep prospecting for new opportunities. That's something we are constantly talking about. The interview we did with Mark Molnar, it was all about that too. It's just that so many people, when they get a job, they stop everything to reach out for companies. While when you get a job, it's the best moment to apply and to make network. When your schedule is full, it's the best moment. I know when you are a salary person, there are some contracts preventing you from doing that. If you're a freelancer, when your schedule is full, that's where you get tons of opportunities. That's why you can afford to go crazy on the price, because you can afford to lose the deal. And sometimes one of those YOLO moonshot price is going to land, maybe setting a new precedent. That's the best moment, guys.
Yes, it absolutely is. And that's why I think it's so important to have this as a community as well, because it's one of those things that my university also did. That's prepare people for the industry. And in most cases, almost everybody from my university, mostly 3D artists and technical artists, almost always they always get into the studio instantly, and after 2 years, I've seen people go from junior to senior, mainly because they already have so much. They understand the pipeline so much better, so they can adapt so much quicker. And I see that with some concept artists, but it's most people are more like more creative, more illustrative, focus on those places. But I do notice that a ton of those people, a ton of them actually do make it in the industry quite quickly, because they have animation skills, they have technical design skills, they have production level 3D skills, maybe not at the highest tier, but they understand the entire process, which as a production 3D artist is extremely important.
Yeah.
And what we do is very specifically here is concept art. And what I've noticed here from you and from myself, what I've done here is just a change of direction, not in skill and how to build what the skills, but and how to approach and how to present it. And you see the difference is suddenly the quality of the art that everybody makes is 10 times better than what they did before, mainly because they approached it in a different way. And suddenly you see all of this work that is just super rare on ArtStation. And I just now recommended at least 2 people to the company, and I know from at least one of them that is going to start Monday.
It's amazing.
So,
he just joined the mentorship and he's already getting a job. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's crazy because, as you say, a change of mindset, change of approach in what you are doing. And that's what I've been noticing with all the mentees, you including. It's just as soon as it clicks regarding the professional expectations and how you approach this from an angle of not, let's make fancy art, but let's try to solve as many problems as possible. in every page of your portfolio, your work becomes so valuable. You save so much money down the pipeline that surprisingly, your work is better. You get more visibility. You get a crap ton of likes on ArtStation because people are craving novelty and people are getting fed up with the same splash art and fancy picture they see all the time. They want novelty. And it kind of feels like the lost knowledge of the golden age of concept art back in 2008, things like that. The Feng Zhu era. And this is not what is going to get you a massive following on Instagram, but this is what is going to get you jobs and pay 6 figures yearly.
Yeah. For example, I know there's this artist that I follow. She, Daphne Yap. She makes very colorful, weird designs and also makes some jewelry and other stuff. And she barely has 1,000 followers on ArtStation. Maybe today it's a little bit more. But she also draws creatures and plants and stuff like that. Do you want to know one of the projects that she has worked on?
Sure.
Avatar. The movie Avatar from James Cameron.
Oh my god.
Yes. She got invited to show some of her work years ago, and then she basically got the job to design all kinds of plants and vegetation for the first Avatar film, and she also worked on the second one. Barely any following on ArtStation, but an incredibly skilled artist, right? So, okay, maybe you don't have 10,000 followers, but you did work on some of the biggest, the biggest brand, the most high-profile projects ever, right?
Yeah.
That's some of the most fascinating parts about it. Like, it's never really about your following or how many likes you have, but
nobody cares about that.
If you can do the job, it's all about if you can do the job.
Yeah. Nobody cares about the amount of followers, and I think it's Feng Zhu was talking about that. Like the biggest artists, they don't even have social media. Nobody knows about them.
Well, they sometimes do. Most of the social media they have, it's either for their friends and family, or they have a website.
Yeah.
And
they are not mainstream, let's say. They are not going. They are not as visible as the big rock stars we know. Some of them, they are extremely big artists, and they are rock stars.
Except Scott Robertson and Craig Mullins, but both provided. Most of the stuff they provide is to help people, to help studios, to help other artists develop stuff. Like Scott Robertson worked on I don't know how many films and projects and video games, but what he's most publicly known for are his books and his tutorials about art and how to approach it and everything. And he worked on so many different projects, and most people know him specifically for the skill and knowledge that he provided. And that's one of those things where the only reason they probably know this guy is because he because he provided so much knowledge for beginning artists, for new people, for studios. And I don't think I would have ever known him if his books didn't pop up at first when I was searching for books to learn how to draw.
Yeah, definitely. And him, Craig Mullins, Feng Zhu, even other big artists, for example, Tyler Edlin or Anthony Jones.
Tyler Edlin is also mostly known for all the
education,
all the tutorials he does, all the education that he provides.
All those big artists, at some point, they want to pass on the knowledge, and that's how you really leave a legacy beyond your art. You're just helping out people. And I see more and more veteran artists moving to the education side now that they've kind of done it all. And I guess you have to renew your center of interest at some point.
And I also think having a wife and a couple of children also makes it a bit more difficult to also be job hunting, to always focus 100% on a job.
I think you cannot afford to juggle 2 jobs, working 14 hours a day when you have a full family, of course.
Yeah. I'm going to sip a little.
Sure, no problem.
That's because talking.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
worry.
So,
All right. So regarding job abundance, are you? Oh, my turn to leave for 2 seconds. I'm going to cut that in the editing. All right, going to be cut with the editing. All right. So yeah, right now I also wanted to talk about that idea of that's something we talked about last time. That idea of building abundance, and
yes.
when you start, we talked about that, and that's something we are discussing constantly in the mentorship. Even we in your class, and in every class, we're always discussing about that. I think the first job is definitely the hardest to get of all. Because
Yes.
you are not because you lack experience per se, but because of the attitude it creates, which is a super duper needy attitude. And companies can really sense that. And it makes them a bit uncomfortable and scared. They are like, oh, why is this person so needy? Why is this person so desperate? There might be a reason for that. Maybe there is a precedent. And I think that's probably the hardest thing to deal with. It's really faking it till you make it in some way. What do you think about that?
I think that is true. I have applied to many jobs, to many companies, and for a while I was getting surprisingly positive rejection letters, where they have looked at your stuff. I even got an interview for a senior position a few times, where I just didn't exactly make the cut, and that tend to have the issue that I might not have the years of experience needed, but that gave me some feeling of I'm doing something good. But I also applied to the senior positions because those are the only ones that were open. I was more surprised I was even getting somewhere with those places.
Yeah.
But I have and we always try to try to find a way to properly apply to jobs, and it makes sense if you're a junior when you have no experience that you have to apply to these jobs. And this sounds counterintuitive, but the only jobs I actually have always received, that have always paid, that always where I've always been able to do my job, are the ones that were offered to me.
Yeah, same.
They always came to me, and that's something that I found so interesting, is that we applied to so many jobs. I have a list of a couple hundred companies that I can apply to, and I should start doing that again, just in because the last couple of months of my contract are coming there, and it still can take 2 to 3 months before you are gonna get.
No, even when you are full. That's what we said before.
Yeah. So this weekend I'm gonna throw out quite a lot of emails again. But what I find interesting is that so far every job I got has been offered to me, either because the art director liked my work, or somebody from the studio knows my work and then came to me, or I get because of the very specific style that I have in my sketch and my profession and my polished pieces, just grabs a lot of attention. I would have never guessed to even have worked in the aerospace industry. Technically, I have done some work there right now. It's not like I'm designing engine parts for a giant helicopter or something like that, but it more has to do with presentational work and more marketing and a bit more visual flair and stuff. And the NDA is for at least 10 years, so I'm not allowed to say what it is, unfortunately. Yeah, that's the aerospace industry. Yeah. That's standard. But that's one of the things. people consistently contacted me when it's for jobs, for projects, even though I applied to so many other places. This is where the interesting thing happened. Like I've always been offered work.
How do you explain that in that case?
I don't know. I think it's because I am so very specific or so very niche, and I have this very specific look that attracts the attention, and that then gets people interested.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where I'm also always a bit baffled by, like, I know studios, most of them tend to struggle with finding the right quality of people or the right person for the job. You apply to so many studios that you think you'd be ready for, or you think you'll be part of, and then the art director of another studio is like, "Hey, we're working on this project. I think you'd be perfect for this. Are you willing to work with us?" Of course, I say yes. And and then a week or two later, you get a contract, and you sign it, and voila, you start working on on a really cool project. But I'm always, but yeah, how do I explain it? I don't know. I think it's like building a way of. I think it's partially a bit of a building a brand, because the work you do is part of you, and you are part of your work. So it's some sort of brand that's your social profile, the things that people do see. That's stuff on social media. That's the stuff you post. That's the work and your insights and everything you share online. And the people you talk to at events. The interaction you have with other people. I think it's something like that. I think that because now that I think about it, that applying to a job doesn't allow you to show this level of who you are.
Exactly.
And I think that's the big difference. That because they know who I am, how I act, how I am, how people perceive me, make me look like a cool guy to work with, and I have also the skill to back it up.
Yeah,
and that is, I think, where the connection lies, and that's the one thing I think is so difficult with applying to a studio, that you have maybe 10%, maybe less of all that influence about that presentation about you, that you can show, that they will understand from you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. That's why applying to a job is so much harder than getting asked for work.
And that's why I'm bashing the head of the student nonstop about the idea of stop considering that applying is the only option. Cold email people, message pros. Because when you cold email the studio, maybe you're not even mentioning you're looking for a job. You're just trying to throw a bottle at them, at the ocean, establish rapport, build a relationship, get your work seen. You're not expecting anything. It's like, hey, here is my work. I would be interested in working with you in the future. Feel free to tell me what I would need to improve in order to potentially eventually being able to work with you. You're not putting pressure on them. You're being genuine. If you write it properly, you are not going to piss them off. You're not facing the tremendous amount of competition when you answer a job offer, and you are not in that professional context. You're just a person trying to get in touch with someone. And of course, most studios, they won't really have the time, but the few that resonate with your work, if they answer to you, they give you feedback, you build a relationship. If you apply what they do, they are going to think about you when they need someone. And that's how most people are getting jobs outside of the market. Like we will need to show that meme of the iceberg. You know, the tip of the iceberg that is visible is the job offers. And the bottom part that is like 90% of the jobs, it's always based off recommendation, personal contact, networking, in-person meetings. You know someone who knows someone that you like. And we never see that because there's no job offer for that. And yet that's how the biggest opportunities are.
Yeah, exactly, and that also has to do with the things you post online and on social media. Like,
Yeah.
There is this level of you want a job, you want to make money, you want to work on these projects, but there is also you can do that because you want specifically those things, because you want the appraisal. But there is also the other level of if you truly are genuine about it, you can still go for those goals. But the difference, if you're actually genuine about it, people will notice that. Like, yes, you're trying to climb the ladder, you try to get higher up, sure. But there's a difference in just trying to climb the ladder and get higher, and because you also genuinely enjoy being part of that team, being part of this group, genuinely, like trying to buddy up with an art director just to get higher up. That's a good way to get up, but also genuinely liking to talk to this art director, genuinely being interested in working together with this art director, genuine. For example, that that has tremendous amounts of more effect.
Yeah.
And how to be genuine about it. That's the difference. That's where I think that just seeing everything as a job and just to make money will make it harder for you to develop these relationships. And I think that that's the fundamental difference in having this as a job and really loving to build video games or to work in this industry.
Yeah.
It's a very subtle difference, but the impact is tremendously. It's tremendous. That's where I think is that's where you can't really teach interest. Like you are either interested in this or not, and if you're not interested, you're always going to struggle.
And that's.
But if you're genuinely interested in, you will struggle for a time.
Yeah.
But you will succeed.
Totally. And that's why people need to go for what they are really genuinely interested into. Again, we have seen so many students who are like, hey, I want to work for this big project or that big project. And then
I'm going to grab
yeah, yeah, no problem. And then you ask a few questions about them and they are like, eventually you realize that they do not really like the project for what it is. They probably have not even played the game. They just like the prestige and the recognition surrounding the project. And
yes,
then you ask them about what they are playing, what they really like, what they are interested into. It's completely different. And there's no way you can reach out to a studio if what you're looking for is the prestige. It can be a secondary motivation, but if it's the sole motivation and someone does not realize that by themselves, people will sense it. That's a discussion I had with the folks at like OPB and such. They're like, we can sense when someone wants to join us just because of the flex factor and not because they genuinely like what we are doing. And again, it gets back to approaching someone from the angle of, I want something from that person. If you go with that angle, people will sense it. They know you have an intention that you are not explicitly saying, and it's going to make them uncomfortable overall. They're going to be on their guard, and they're going to bust you. They're going to know exactly what you want because they are solicited so much for that already. While on the other side, if you are genuine, it's like, hey, I would love to work with you in the future. No pressure. Please, would you mind telling me what I need to do and implement in my work to make it potentially possible in the future? I'm willing to do the work. That's completely different. You are upfront with your intentions, and there's nothing wrong about that. Nobody should be ashamed of their intentions, but you are removing the instantaneous expectation. And you're like, I'm teachable. I'm listening. Feel free to tell me what I need to do. I will do it. And you know what? If someone gives you feedback and you implement that fast and you send them again, there's nothing that makes a teacher more happy than a student applying the work and getting results. So you are actually feeding a positive reinforcement loop to incentivize them to give you more and more feedback. And that's also how you build relationship.
Yes, exactly, and that's why I am also why I think that I think where the toxic positivity in studios comes from is that nobody is genuine at the company. That's why nobody likes getting feedback, because it always feels like an attack, and therefore you can never truly criticize. That's why everything has to be positive, and that's because people have become very specifically only focused to get something. That the idea is to only there to get something. You have a prestigious title, and you're only there to get something.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other. I was in this meeting, in this gathering with with a ton of professional VFX artists from the film industry and some designers who worked there not so long ago, and they told me something like that. That a lot of people now just are there to do a job, and they sense something is wrong, and that's then when I look at it, it's quite a terrifying thought that this is what the industry has come to. Like, it's just there to do a job. It's just a business. It's not enjoyable anymore. And if you hear this from people who've been in the industry for 20 years, 25 years, who worked on Star Wars, who worked on the Terminator, who worked on other incredible, awesome film projects, it's a little bit disheartening to listen to, but I think that's where we can still make a massive difference by bringing the joy and the connection and the ideas back to, we want something cool. I mean, I think I can build better projects with $700 million that they give on Call of Duty, and just something unique.
It's a bold statement, dude.
I mean, if I get 3 years of 700 million, I can hire the best of the industry at industry level standard salaries, easy for 4 years, and just have one amazingly focused project, and it'd probably be awesome. Maybe it needs 4 years to make sure it's polished and everything works, but
wow.
I mean, look at the game Doom and Doom Eternal and Doom: The Dark Ages.
Yeah.
The budgets of those games have, I think only Doom Eternal had a budget of over $150 million.
It's not that expensive for such a success, yeah.
And it resonates with everybody. The name is out there. It still sells multiple millions of units. They still make they still made almost $500 million in profit or something like that. I mean, and they don't throw 700 million to the project. And look at what they do. They might not skyrocket skyrocket at first, but if they keep this up, Call of Duty might be dead in 5 years. Who knows? Maybe 10 years. You know, maybe the next 5 years still going to be great, but then in 10 years, nobody cares about Call of Duty anymore. But I can guarantee you, maybe they stop making Doom for the next 5 years, right? So for the next 5 years, there's not going to be any more Doom. In 10 years, there will be Doom again, because it will always be there. That's the gold standard for action games.
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember when Doom 2016 got released, I clearly say to everyone around them, like, Doom 2016, they redefined what an FPS is meant to be. And then Doom Eternal came and they redefined it again. They redefined the new standard. And I'm expecting Doom the Dark Age to redefine it again.
Yeah, they have the philosophy that every Doom game has to be their own thing. It has to stand on their own and do its own thing.
Yeah.
And that's... And the games are fun. I think I finished Doom 2016 more times than I'd like to admit. But there is something truly cathartic about it. Like, the game is not for everybody, but that also makes it stand out and consistent. That's what. And most of my library of games is this type of action games, right? But the other game I play too much is Dark Souls.
Yeah.
and specifically Dark Souls
Same.
3.
I have 4-digit number hours of play on Elden Ring. I'm a bit ashamed to admit that, but that's true.
I am not that. I haven't played Elden Ring enough for that to be in those numbers yet. But the reason why I like Elden Ring is because it's absolutely not like all the other games I have.
Yeah.
And that makes it great to stand out. And that's because they have their own identity. They're not trying to implement all the pop culture references and skins and everything. No. They have their own thing, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think is so important about our industry. We used to have Ubisoft used to have how many different properties that were all unique, like
Prince of Persia, Splinter Cell, the first Assassin's Creed, Rayman, Far Cry. There were a
Rainbow
lot.
Six,
Rainbow
Six as well, and now they've all turned in Ubisoft open world sandbox games. With
it's kind of the same, unfortunately.
And when you see the and when you see the numbers of how many players finish those games, it sells well, but almost nobody gets anywhere. Like it was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where 40% of players never managed to reach England. They don't.
Wow.
Yeah, but you have to imagine that that's probably the place where most of the money went to, because it's the biggest part of the game. And 40% of people, let's say if they sold, I think they easily sold over 10 million copies of that. It was a pretty good selling game.
Probably.
But that means that 4 million people saw less than 20% of the content you have in your game.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very, very bad sign for your game.
Yeah, that's probably a problem. I can understand when you see that X% of the player base playing Bloodborne or Dark Souls never passed the first boss, because those were the From Software virgin type of player who experienced a massive cultural shock, let's say. That's a bummer, but that's understandable, and it's part of the philosophy of the game, and the devs are unapologetic about that. But when you do a mass market oriented game like Assassin's Creed, that's a different problem, and it's probably more of a flaw in the content, in the pacing of the game, than in the general philosophy that wants to be hardcore, because Assassin's Creed is not a hardcore game. A Kotaku journalist can finish the game, so it tells a lot. That was a free spit at Kotaku, and I'm not sorry about that.
I understand the issues with games journalism, and that's I don't know if you understood how the first Gamergate started. It had to do with GameSpot giving great reviews to Gain and Lynch to the game Gain and Lynch, which was a lot of people thought it was a very bad game. Like, it's the bad story, and it was bad presented. The game was running terribly, and that a lot of issues. Like, the game wasn't ready yet, and GameSpot started raving how incredible the game was, and it's like one of the best games ever, and it gave it an extremely high score. And
they did the same with Concord. I think they gave a 7 or an 8, and they were like, I don't understand why more people are not playing it, and it closed the next day. And
but when you hear about Concord, you could have known this is going to be this game is the game is in trouble.
Of course, you're going to. You know when a game is going to flop. You just look at the trailer. You look at the like to dislike ratio. No game with under 50% like to dislike ratio ever succeeded.
Black Ops 2.
Really?
No. Black Ops 2 had the biggest like to dislike ratio. It had the biggest dislikes, but it was also the best-selling Call of Duty game at that time.
That's surprising. That's probably the only exception, but because you look at all the modern games, none of them with an abysmal like to dislike ratio went well. Absolutely none of them.
that's one of those things. What I'm what's so like if you look at the moment you hear the development of the game, that the game has been in development for 8 years, you know something is wrong. That's
Yeah.
not a good sign.
Yeah.
And even the biggest games almost never get in that scenario. Even The Witcher 3 was not that long in development compared to that, even though that's a huge game.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you start to ask where things go wrong, where
Yeah.
and it's probably has to do with a certain work culture. It has to do with things that keep shifting. There aren't any solutions. There isn't any consensus. Top people leave. People who have no idea how to lead a project come in, or maybe have not enough experience, or goalposts shift, or studio mandates, or the investor or the publisher says, well, now we have to turn this into a live service game or something like that. And it comes down to everything is so corporate. There is no joy into the project anymore, and I think that's the painful part. That's the one thing we need to watch out for in our industry. Like, you see the games that's created by inventive people that want to create something, and you see the difference. Like, Doom is gonna be there because Doom was the first.
Yeah.
But it was also made by a Rockstar development team. That one
Yeah.
of them actually behaved like a freaking Rockstar, even though he was also a workaholic. That's the guy that programmed 60 different games before he started working with id Software. But they weren't planning on making 1 million sales. It just became an instant hit. Stuff like this, like you see the moment that you have so many examples of the moment that people really enjoy what they're doing, when they make something cool, when they work together,
You can
when they
sense it.
and those games almost always sell incredibly well. And only very big corporate, where they spend hundreds of millions on marketing, tend to sell well.
That's definitely my theory regarding the future of the industry. I think the old giants are probably going to crumble even more. But from those robots, there are going to be tons of new studios by people who have been frustrated by those studios who are going to be created and bring back what was the spirit of those studios in the first place. I always have the example of Moon Studio, for example, by Blizzard veterans. Ori, it's one of my most played games. It's a fucking masterpiece. No Rest for the Wicked, I'm waiting for the end of early access for it to be quote unquote fully fledged before starting playing it, but it's visually and in terms of gameplay, it looks incredible.
I don't know if you've heard
you
of
can
the
sense the
Forever
passion
Winter.
overall.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the Forever Winter. I've played the game, and I have a lot more time in there. I have like 50 hours in that game already. But you clearly, it's a very small studio by some ex developers from a bigger studio. I forgot which one. I think somewhere from Bungie, somewhere from one of the Call of Duty games, and it's a dark, bleak game that absolutely does not pull any punches or try to appeal to a broad audience, and it creates this unique experience, and it's
even Remnants was like that.
Yes,
Remnant 2 was incredible. The art direction is insane, actually.
Yeah, and you see that a ton of indie studios not only get to the same level as big AAA studios, but they, as some cases, they manage to surpass it, or just stand on the same level of rivalry what they could deliver. And then you have a team of like 20 people delivering something absolutely incredible. I think that the team for Space Marine 2 was only like 50 people.
Yeah, this game has been incredible. Another example, the show is a bit bigger, but those who made Helldivers. Helldivers was arguably one of the biggest hits that we got recently, especially for a multiplayer game, it completely different the community of Destiny and things like that. And it's such a positive community. They are listening to the public. They are doing exactly what needs to be done. There's this kind of rivalry between the devs and the player base when they want to release a new faction. And because the community is repelling them all the time, they can never release that new faction. It's so good. It's great to have relationships with that between the devs and the public. It establishes trust. It was the same with Larian Studio. When they did that extensive period of testing and feedback gathering, they are still doing that even for Baldur's Gate. Every time they want to release a patch, you can register for the stress test, and you're like, okay, guys, try to break the thing. Let's go, break it. Let's see how it goes. And there's a lot of studios like that, and even the big new giants. I'm thinking, for example, about Marvel Rivals. It's done by Tencent, if I'm not mistaken.
It's funded by Tencent.
It's funded by Tencent, so there's a lot of money, and it really feels like they studied the market extremely well. They picked like everything that was wrong with what Overwatch became. They were like, let's not do that, let's do the opposite. Roll queue, everyone hates that. Whatever, you're going to have 5 support or 5 tanks in the team, that's not of a problem. Let's have the rule of fun. Meta surrounding esport that flopped, let's keep it mainstream. The esport player will have to figure out something. And everything like that shows that they really, of course, there's a financial incentive behind, but at the same time, they understand that to make money, you need to satisfy the public in the first place.
Yeah. Because they are your primary source of income. Because they are because it's not some investor that's going to predict your market cap that's going to be the one that's going to make you money. Like,
definitely.
It's the people who's going to buy a product that are going to enjoy your product, that they are going to give you money. So you have to appeal to that. And this is one of the weirdest things I've also noticed with some developers. Some of them, before the game is even out, or some concerns have been raised, which some people say it's criticism, some say it's just like people are having questions of what the game is going to be about. They just start straight up insulting their customer base.
Oh yeah, we've seen that so much recently.
Concord's community, they were so much trying to insult their customer base. I've seen things on Twitter where they started using racial slurs against certain groups of people. That you can use it, but I'm not going to into that. But I've seen that on some other as well, where they start insulting YouTubers.
I don't understand that idea of antagonizing your customers. Like it's like the number one rule of business. Like the customer is always right, even when they are wrong. You need to treat them like the princesses that they are. You need to respect them. And you have 2 options when building games. You have those like From Software who are like, we never thought for a single second about what the public wants. We are just doing what we like. Same for Doom. Same even for Larian Studio. You can really sense that they are nerds about that. But at some point, they are also open to feedback eventually. And then you have the Marvel rival approach, which is like, okay, let's do a perfect case study of the ideal customer profile. Let's understand their pain point, their frustration with previous games. Let's understand the horror story, and let's deliver everything they wish there was.
Yeah, this is one of that's one of those things where, like, if you why would you insult your potential customer base? Like that will alienate almost anybody who will give you money for your project. It's the dumbest business ever, and the real quote is the customer is always right in terms of taste.
And it's really getting back to that idea of attitude, the professional attitude you were talking about. Again, it's about being genuine. It's about liking what you do. And a lot of those people who have been acting rogue on social media, it feels like they really hate gamers overall. And it's like, if you hate gamers at that point,
Why are you in
why
this
are you
industry?
here? Why are you in
Yes.
that business? Are you some kind of Trojan horse sent by whatever type of conspiracy theory shit meant to tank the industry? Is it what you are? Are you a double agent? Or are you there just because of reasons that are outside of comprehension, and you just want to destroy what people like? I don't understand that principle. And
Maybe it's a form of jealousy. Like how dare
yeah, I
people
don't
be
know.
happy about something?
Yeah, yeah,
uh, but
it's
that kind of
weird.
behavior that always brings a lot of toxic positivity with them. That's always that brings insulting your customer base. And for a studio, it's very dangerous to hire those people
Yeah.
because they are the face of your company. They are the face of your product. This is this is what people will see that will buy your product. Like you have now some big name artists publishing completely unhinged ramblings on hating Trump supporters or something like that. Or
On both
uh,
sides of the argument, by the way,
uh,
I've seen
you voted for this guy, die. Oh, you voted
yeah,
for
on
that
both
guy.
sides of the argument, by the way, that's what we have been discussing last time. And I know people can be emotional about that. I'm not questioning that. Everyone is entitled to think whatever they want. But going ape shit on social media, first of all, it's not going to change that much. And you're also going to antagonize so many people around you. You're going to do irreparable damages to your reputation. And a lot of people are doing that with working for that company in their bio. So they are attracting dramas to that company. And we saw, with what you just said before, so many examples of tweets costing millions, if not hundreds of millions, to the company in stock. The biggest example is with the Avowed art director set of tweets. We did the math last time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it costed between 150 and 200 million dollars just for a fucking tweet in stocks.
Yeah,
This is
and
nuts.
that's something you don't want as a company. Like,
Yeah.
no matter how terrible AI is, would you rather have an AI where you can that needs I don't know how much work to actually do something properly, or do you want to deal with somebody who uh, is
With
such
an
a integral
emotional
part of
grenade with legs that is going to detonate in the studio.
yes,
Yeah.
and has a lot of power within the studio, capable of disrupting the entire production of the
With
game,
just a few tweets. Because
with just a few.
it's so easy to destroy a whole company by going apeshit on social media. That's also the
Yeah,
problem. And David was talking about that too, and we need to make an interview from hell with him at some point. Maybe the three of us, actually, it would be funny. But he was saying that today, especially in the US, a lot of studios, they want people that are almost pure from social media. They don't want you to have been cultivating dramas over the last 3 years on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever social media, because they know if you have been doing that for years, you are going to do the same, but with their name in your bio,
yep,
and it's a massive risk, and it's way easier to hire someone else or fire up someone like that than having to deal with a PR shitstorm and lose millions in stock, maybe lose a project because of that. Again, you look at Avowed. Avowed is dead. It has been killed with like 4 tweets.
I don't think they
7
will.
years of development gone the garbage.
The best I can hope for them is they might sell 100,000 units, and that would be only one, or maybe 5% of what they need to get there to break even.
Yeah.
And for my potential millions of users as a customer base to maybe 100,000 because they truly want to play the game, that's a very terrifying prospect when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's the and you brought up Blue Sky, and Blue Sky shows more unhinged things from people than Twitter.
It's an echo chamber. Let's see. I know Twitter
I
tends to become an echo chamber too in different ways, but both of them, they are. probably on different side of the spectrum, and echo chambers is bad in general.
Yes.
Get a lot of unhinged shit on it.
Because it can lead to the metaverse, a horrible. Because Mark Zuckerberg was surrounded by only yes men, and he pours $1 billion into a VR world, and it looks like crap.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where all the money went, but
The
he was surrounded
metaverse,
by
let's
yes men.
spend billions in that shit.
And it looks, and it's not even close. That's what you create when you have an echo chamber, because you create a bubble and nothing else. And I don't like to use Blue Sky because still, I don't know why people like to use Twitter. The user experience and the UI is absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Then they made Blue Sky. They have not fixed the problem of the UI and the UX. They just copy Twitter, and it's not a great thing. But I'm fine with it because I don't really interact with it anyway. But when I noticed that what people said put in their bios, I am absolutely baffled. Like, why would you put this in your bio? What the hell is going on?
Why are you putting all the red flags for the recruiter not to hire you in your bio?
Like one of the things I saw in one of the bios is your
yeah, I remember about that one.
Oh, yeah, no, that's some of the more normal stuff I see people post in the bios, and that's bad. I'm like, it makes no sense to me. And then I saw this other guy who actually is doing quite a lot of good stuff, who's a pretty good artist, who put in their bio that they are an unemployed, starving artist, and a couple of other things like that. It's like, why put that? It's like, cry for me. I am in so much trouble. Please give me attention, kind of, instead of like, I'm an artist, open for it. I'm a concept artist. I work on big projects or something like that, right? That's what I think. If you want to promote your art, that's what you should do, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, it makes no sense to put an entire emotional, traumatic backstory at first when people look at your profile. Like, first of all, why would you want to share this with the world? And second, if you want, do you want to share your art, or
do you want to trauma dump on the internet? Yeah. And
yeah,
again, everyone might have baggage, and everyone, us included. Again, that's not really the debate, but it's just about having a professional attitude and etiquette again. And when they see starving artists desperate, I am taking 26 different antidepressants because of that. Just put yourself for a second in the shoes of a studio, and I mean that with zero disrespect for people struggling in life or whatever. It's really trying to help everyone on a professional standpoint. As a recruiter, you see that it can be seen as a risk. And you are like, I want someone that is professional, that is not going to contaminate the studio with their own problems. There's a clear separation between life and work. And hopefully that is smiling and happy about what they do, because they are less prone to burnout. They are less prone to contaminating the team with bad feelings and all of that. So again, if right now you are in a bad state as an artist, try to fake it if you really want to get a job, because by showing the negative aspect of life, it's going to turn people off. And studios might be like, if that person is a starving artist, there might be a few reasons for that might make that person impossible to employ. So
they might think about, this person is going to be a major risk.
Yeah.
Isn't there a better option to do so?
Yeah. I apologize in advance. My cat is crying like crazy right now. I don't know what's going on.
I can hear. And that's that's something I'm always so weirded out by, with what people just put on social media.
Yeah.
I'm like, then you have social media with your friends, family, where you discuss whatever or share memes, and some of them can be horrible and funny, and I like those types of memes. But I am not going to consistently put on full-on political rants about topics I have no fucking clue about, or something like that. Like, why would I? And second, most of the time when you do something like that, it's going to create some very negative image about who you are.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that gets me into trouble is when I post something about design.
Yeah.
When I discuss something about design.
Same.
When I try,
Strangely, on LinkedIn, I'm getting a lot of hate sometimes.
and that's and here's the thing. I actually did a study into psychological parts of our investment into visual art, and my whole thesis turned around into the study of semiotics in hard surface design. And semiotics is basically the study of symbols and shapes. The most easiest way of saying it. And
yeah.
it all came. What I found, even though my sample size is very small, that's the downside of a university master and not a professional, commercially funded research. Is what I found there was a specific correlation with a visual appeal, visual engagement, and things that were liked about designs that were technically better designed, where there was where it seems like there was some technical understanding on how something would fit together, than those designs where that was not even that wasn't the case at all. And there, I noticed. So even though you don't understand exactly how a plane does work, there are certain rules you have to follow because it's constructed in a certain way, and you don't have to show that. But allowing the person to understand that something like that's going on beneath the surface allows people for better engagement within that. And from that point, I understood in design, there are certain rules you have to follow. You can't just go willy-nilly, especially not when you want to sell something. Like if you're an artist and you want to be as broad and crazy and as artistic as possible and just do the craziest shit by painting yourself blue and then start duct taping frogs to you as an art project. I mean, that's art. Do whatever. Maybe you have a good message about it, but here's the thing. That way of doing things and that way of thinking is probably not going to land you a job in the gaming industry because that's not the type of art that people need or people want.
Yeah.
There might be a very specific group of people that like that, but that's probably going to be quite a minor group of people.
Totally.
And the work we do, we have the numbers to back up that what we do, people really like, and a lot of people like, because this is a multi-billion-dollar business. Based on that, I would say that, yes, following certain rules of design and visual appeal and structure are highly important, because otherwise this business would not exist.
Yeah, it's something that artists do not really like to hear. Like art, okay, there's a subjective part, but there's a lot of things you can theorize, including design, including storytelling, including getting a job. It's not an arcane practice. It follows rules. It reminds me of a debate we got on the Discord regarding interviews and the hiring process. And some people struggling with that more than the other. And as soon as you stop seeing that like that weird social test that people think, and you start to gamify it, you understand behind every question, there is another question. There is something that they try to extract from you. When they are asking you, oh, what's your latest experience? They want to make sure, for example, that you are not going to bitch and whine about your previous employer or call someone a Nazi or whatever. You are going to show that you learned something and that you can be positive. If you talk negatively about your former employer, former colleague, and things like that, they don't want you because you're going to do the same with them. That's as simple as that. Same when they ask you about the qualities and flaws or other HR weird questions like that. There's always some specific infos they are trying to get from you, and it's trying to portray who you are and see if it ticks the boxes. As soon as you understand that behind every question there's something they want, and you understand exactly what it is, you can gamify that. You know the rules of the game. You can play accordingly. You can strategize around that. And it's doable, even for people that might be struggling socially. It's totally doable, and it has rules. And applying, that's something I see a lot with people who are trying to get jobs and are applying to the mentorship. It's like they know to do art more or less according to what the production needs. There's also the application part, and it's like, yeah, I sent 800 applications. Yeah, but you copy pasted the same message. You never ask yourself, what could be improved? Maybe something is wrong in my way of doing it. Oh, you sent a picture for your CV instead of a PDF or text file. Guess what? If they use an ATS, they won't be able to read that and they will disqualify you immediately. Recently, I was having a kid in an interview. It was like, I tried to change my strategy from sending a JPEG to a PDF, and I immediately noticed a bit more positive answers. Here we go. You are starting to see a pattern and trying to retro-engineer it and trying to figure that out. And I'm always baffled to see, because all jobs, especially as concept artists, concept designers, it's to deal with patterns. You see a certain shape, you see a certain color, you associate that with an ID, and you compose a picture with that to express a certain set of IDs. But a lot of people are unable to do that outside of art. And it's exactly the same. What is everyone doing on our station? This picture, like splash art, wannabe, Last of Us, keyframe fan art, things like that. Are any of them getting jobs with that? No. For an overwhelming majority of them, no. Pattern, they do that, no job. Maybe not doing that might be a good idea, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the things I've noticed is I've never been able to follow art trends. I actually tried it a couple of times, but for some reason I've never been able to do that. And I think that allowed me to develop my own weird approach and unique style, because I was completely unable to follow all the art trends that everybody else was doing. But that allowed me to get some very interesting job offers, and it allowed me to get some work. And I think because the way how my social media is, and 95% is me just posting some simple artwork, and then 5% stirring getting people mad by talking about design, is probably the reason why I'm still managed to stay in contact with quite a lot of people. And I'm not trying to make a giant network because I need a giant network, but because I genuinely want to be interested in what these people do. I follow a lot of designers, for example. They make some of the most amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly inspiring. And with some of them, I can have a chat about absolute bullshit, and with others, it's just very professional because they don't know me. And I am totally fine with both. But I do like the work they create, because a lot of the stuff, it's incredibly inspiring. Sometimes it's very sometimes I see something really crazy, then when I look closely I see a very simple solution for a problem I was dealing with as well. It's like, it's that little thing that they found out that they managed to solve first before doing the rest, and it was like, it's such an obvious thing, but you don't think about that unless you understand what you're doing. And then and so I do say, like, I never really learned anything by myself. I've always been either inspired or have gotten a ton of help from other professionals who knew what they were doing. And it's a lot of those things. Like, I try to be as professional as possible. I think I'm doing that, but I also try to reflect on that, how I've been behaving. Like, maybe as I noticed something that went wrong, and was this an art thing? Was this how I've been behaving? Did I make a mistake? And it's something I've been doing all my life. Well, the last 15 years, I think, because I have been diagnosed with autism, with severe autism as a child. So from a very early age, I had to consistently retrace my own steps. I had to address all those things. And that's probably the reason why I think that I am capable of acting quite well in a social situation, because I have to constantly refocus, rethink certain steps, or analyze every interaction I have had.
You had to rationalize everything regarding that to understand how it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not the first person on the spectrum who says that. I've met other people who are extremely sharp at social interaction, and they are extremely good at marketing, business, sales, all the social jobs, while being on the extreme side of autism for some of them.
Yeah, and this is why the funny thing is, the work that we do, we tend to be the outcasts because we don't have a normal job.
Yeah.
So we have so much more people on the spectrum here, but that also, but I like to think that it's not a good idea to use your diagnosis as an excuse for shitty behavior. I think that should be clearly that you should try and reflect on it. Like, because you have a certain limitation and are aware of it, you should be able to learn from that. Like, you know you're doing something wrong, but you might not know why. Maybe I'm ruffling some feathers here with people who.
I'm already sweating for the comments right now, but that's fine.
But the thing is, I have been through that same process of, absolutely not wanting to listen to people who are not in this industry trying to give me advice on this stuff, or people just trying to say that I'm doing something wrong, even though I didn't know what I was doing wrong, or when other people did certain behaviors and they say you have to do the same thing and you do that as well, and then you get in trouble for it for whatever reasons, I completely don't understand the thing what you then did wrong, because all the other people did. So why did they pick me? And why do they then punish me for it? And it's learning to understand that not only that you have a problem, or that you have certain limits that's not very well limited or visually with other people, will allow you to address these issues. Like, how when people think when I'm trying to be as social as possible, I'm still weird. I know it's because I have autism, but I also know I'm doing something that's not perfect, and maybe I can address this issue, but I'm usually not aware of me doing that at the moment. I am usually aware of it after a day or after the interaction is over.
Reflect upon that, yeah.
You can reflect upon that, yeah. And this kind of behavior has brought me into trouble of many times before, but it doesn't happen that much anymore because I've been able to reflect on it. And this is the kind of stuff that's probably the most controversial part about it. Like, yes, you have a problem, but you should not blame bad behavior on it. What you should do is learn your limits and try to work around it, and then try to build from there. And I'm making it sound very easy, but
it's not. It's very hard. It takes a lot of time, of course.
I think I saw the real change when I was 23, when 22 and 23, where most of the stuff started to work, and I've been doing that since I was 12. So it took me more than 11 years before it really started to work. Mm-hmm. Maybe those changes have been there subtly and have been starting to slowly build, but it took years upon years to be capable of this level of self-reflection. And I think if you can deal with that, if you can apply that, if you can incorporate it in yourself, in a way that benefit your situation, it's I think the most powerful tool, because not only can you then rationalize yourself, but also rationalize very other behavioral things from other people. And I've seen a lot of people behave in a very simple things, that in a very annoying ways that I used to as an autistic person, and they may not be on the spectrum, but I suddenly see them as if they just copy other people, and then you can understand, like, all right, so is this person really interested, or are they just here because they are here, or something like that? And from that point, you can learn certain things to do during social interactions. Like, you can learn that with certain people you meet, for example, at an event, you might just be polite, or you start talking to somebody, and in an instant, you know, you are on the same level, and you can become lifelong friends, which has happened before with me, with some people I met in Croatia who came to the Netherlands not so long ago, and we have been in contact for almost 7 years. We always saw each other at events, and it was just the moment we saw each other in real life, it was like we're back at the same level, and it was great. But I haven't seen them for 5 years due to the pandemic. And we met at an event in another country. And this can happen.
Yeah.
So based on these things, it's be aware of the problems you have in the social situations. I also think that being permanently online and not going to events and only stay behind your computer is helping. A very bad. Yeah. It's not helping. It might even accelerate the problem.
Yeah.
But that's why I always find it so funny that, especially in school projects or other projects or at events, that I'm usually the social guy, even though I am diagnosed. I was diagnosed with very severe forms of autism. Like,
I remember at Kind of Art, you were so outgoing. You were taking so much space. You were so big in the place, and
I'm just excited meeting so many people. Like, everybody is so enthusiastic about it. They all want to see all of this cool stuff. They all want to be get in touch with everybody. But I also see everybody just not really having the courage to talk to each other, and I'm like, here, I'm pushing
sometimes
you
to force it and push someone into the conversation.
Like, so that's the art director. We're looking for this character. It's like,
grab someone and put it.
and knowing that this person actually has some skills, like, so you say you want to be good. I want to talk. Right. Do you have time? Yeah, here. This person could just could you have a look at this? Because
that makes it also cool. Kind of art with a lot of the students. Like, at some point there was Jess, and I don't remember who I was talking to. We were talking about character design. Like, oh, shoot, this is Jess, by the way. She was like, oh, what is happening to me?
But it's also a part of the impression. Well, I do generally. I like the vibe at Kind of Art. I like the people hanging out, and because I go to a lot of these events, some of the top of the industry also knows who I am. It was such a exhilarating moment when I managed to meet Mark Molnar again, because I've been in contact with the guy for years, and we met at a few other events, and he was back then was really cool. He was like, there's
such
some
an amazing
and,
encounter.
And the moment we saw each other, dude, how you been, man? It's been ages. Like, oh shit, it's Mark. Hey, Mark. It's like, oh shit, he recognized me before I recognized him. And that's this camaraderie among all of these artists that I think is so important. And therefore, it's also important to work on your social skills, because you might enjoy all of these people. You like hanging out with me, you like being experimental, you like the things they say about it, you want to be part of the conversation, but you should have a little bit of social skill to interact with that, like to build these things. Like, I've seen artists that want to be big and want to grow and do everything, but are unwilling to take on feedback, are unwilling to take on or dare to talk to other artists. And it's like the only way you can grow is not by forcing yourself to do it. I mean, there are people that probably can do it. I've seen developers just doing everything on their own and building an entire game, even including the art. It's like, sure, but that's like 1 in a billion people who can do that. So there's like 9 people in the world who do that, and I only know about 9 people in the world who did that.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard a quote in a French podcast recently that summarizes that regarding like people with big ambition but unable to accept feedback or accept any kind of friction. The guy nailed it perfectly. It was like the worst kind of combination you can have when you want to achieve something is having ambitions that are way bigger than your courage.
Yeah,
And
that's actually a good quote.
That's what I was like, oh, that hurts. But
I was one of those people once.
Same.
The very first event I went to was in 2016. That's I think it was the industry workshop or IFCC. No, it was IFCC in
Croatia.
In Croatia, yeah. And it really that's where I was just my ambitions were bigger than my courage, and that's the I think it was the perfect wake-up call. That's where I learned where I met a lot of cool people. That's where I met Björn Hurry. That's where I met Evan L. Amundsen. That's where I met Mark Molnar. That's where I met a couple of other really, really good artists. Like, and it was always very fun to hang with these people the moment I was able to. Usually early in the morning before everybody woke up because everybody was drinking the night before because it's so super cheap and everybody was hammered. And I'm there early in the morning, and who was was there? There was Björn, Jesper Eising, and another and Evan. They were all there early in the morning having coffee, and I was the only guy there early in the morning. So. But it was at that moment, it was there at those places where I was able to get some feedback on my portfolio, and I had feedback from Marko Djurjevic, the dude who founded Sigma Vodka.
Mm-hmm.
He was brutal.
Yeah. This guy is brutal.
But he wasn't like, I hate this. No, he was just breaking down all my stuff step by step. So I got a major breakdown of my own work, and there was nothing really I could do against it. At that moment, I had to learn to accept all my flaws, and that's not a great feeling. That can that can feel bad. Like I felt like shit, and for 2 days. But at that moment, I slowly started to realize all the things I needed to improve, all the things I should apply to, all the things I should tackle. And I did not tackle everything. But I did tackle the specific things I knew were, for me, the easiest steps to start approaching. And from that point, I was able to build. And not long after that, I got contact. I uploaded some of my space work, where I also got some feedback from other artists, like Jort van Welberg, for example, who was there as well. Really great dude, good guy to drink some beers with. He also gave me some feedback, but because my portfolio was completely cracked, Marco was able to correct the code and what I was doing wrong completely. Yeah. I was able to apply some of that and upload it and get some attention. And not long after that, David Westman contacted me. Hey, working on this space game. Do you want to join us? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And like, hey, if you want some more experience in learning how game development work, I am teaching at this university. Maybe you should come. Should apply here as well. And then the next year, I went to that university and got in and. Basically, from then on, it started. And then, after my third year, after the release of my game, I contacted OpenArts for an internship. And they said, "Oh yeah, hey, we know this guy. He's from we know this guy. We met him at these and these events.
There we go, meeting in person."
Meeting in person, and then I was like, "Yeah, he was a pretty cool guy. Let's give him a shot at the studio." And I've been there. I've been with them for 3 years, and the one thing I did notice is that they have an extremely high skill ceiling. It's like they ask for a lot. I do think that if the pandemic didn't happen and I had to move to London and I was at the studio, I would have improved 3 times as fast. But working from home and the difference between what they were asking and the communication did make it a bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But Björn Hurry is an incredible art director.
Yeah.
He is capable of such perfect explanation of how to approach shape design, how to approach composition, stuff like that, how to play with colors, how to approach all that kind of stuff. It's incredible. And people say he might be very harsh on the art director. I don't think he's very harsh. I think I was just a difficult idiot.
I would love to have him in the podcast. He's one of the person I'm looking after the most for a podcast.
He's an extremely social guy.
Yeah.
You can always chat with this guy. You can always get a drink with him. He's very, very nice. I don't think why people think he's intimidating, but
he looks
maybe
like
because
he looks like a berserker from the Viking age, you know. That's probably why.
But yeah, but he absolutely is. But if you look at his face, his smile is just so incredibly friendly,
joyful.
It's so joyful there. But the team I worked with at OpenSarts at the time, some people still work there. Some have gone to other studios. I had to quit because I was doing a master study as well, and that just didn't go together.
Mm-hmm.
Full-time study and full-time work. I should have learned from that doing two full-time things together isn't a good idea, but I did it again and didn't work out properly. But but that's one of those things. OpenSarts really opened my eyes into the professional world. Marko Dudovic at IFC broke down what I was missing. OpenSarts showed me what the industry needs. And in the meantime, I've been trying to build that up. And there is it is a combination of attitudes. It's a combination of how you are as a person, how you act online, and I do think that trying to improve your social skill and not just dump it on a problem you have and then not trying to improve it is a very, very bad thing to do, because that might also reflect on some more deeper lying issues, like not wanting to wanting to implement feedback. Like then you get feedback and you say, yeah, but that's just my art style, or that's just this, or something like that, you know. So I think everything is connected to a certain degree with each other.
Definitely.
In some ways more than another, you know. So that's what I think.
Yeah, completely. It happened to me regarding art. It was in 2018. It was with Goro Fujita at IAMAG. I was expecting nothing from that because I'm not doing stylized, but I wanted to get feedback. He ripped apart my portfolio. That was just showered by praise by Anthony F. Carey, Raphael Lacoste before. I was a bit on a high. He gave me a humble pie like crazy. he like flipped through my portfolio in like 10 seconds and he came back to something like, do this. And it was the least technically proficient picture I had. It was with my little owls. And he was like, the technique, you know to do it. I don't give a fuck anymore. This is where you have the idea. This is where you have the storytelling and the value. Do more of that. And I was like, whew. We discussed for a long time. And even recently, not that much on art, but on what has been done with the artness so far. I exposed that to a friend of mine who is running a big business. He's a matchmaker for business. And he ripped me apart for an hour. I've been crying for a whole week after I was demolished. But he brought me so much more clarity. He was like, how comes you do not have an additional zero at the end of the month, every month with what you do? How comes you have not the entire industry eating in your hands already? I was like, whoa. and the guy gave me so much clarity. So yeah, sometimes you need to get hurt a bit with the feedback. You need someone that is very benevolent and able to explain that is going to completely demolish everything you have done to help you rebuild it better. And it's always so painful to endure, that's why it requires a bit of courage, I think. But if you can go through it, that's extremely, extremely worth it, and that's how you grow, like massively.
Yes. One other thing is none of those feedbacks are always are in any bad faith
No,
or
it's
trying
never
to
mean.
insult you. It's never mean. It's never insulting. It's never. That's the moment where you actually have to realize it's you. They are basically holding up a mirror to you, and then
Yeah.
you have to learn to look at yourself. And at
Yeah.
that moment, you'll see all the flaws, and that's the idea. But you don't want to see all the flaws. Your mind tries to protect you from all the bad things you do. That's basically how you build an ego. Maybe that's the reason why some of the top of the in the industry are so extremely humble, because the only reason they've been able to get there is because they constantly had to look at themselves in the mirror and address it. I don't know if you have ever heard of Fausto De Martini.
Just by name, I probably remember his work, but it's been a long time since I've heard that name.
Ever heard of Project Edge?
Yes.
That's the guy.
Okay.
He made that all by himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I have interviewed him for my. I was able to get him to interview him for my master's degree, which was absolutely incredible.
Wow.
And he is such an incredibly humble person. He is so full of energy, is so full of creativity, and he's so damn humble. It's unbelievable. Like you could not see this person even hurt a fly. That's how humble this person is, and he makes some of the most incredible things. He designs and creates 3D assets for the Avatar films, like the giant, like the helicopter planes, the trains that you see in the opening of the second film. That is almost all of his work. It's like a whole team that worked on it, and he is such a central part of the stuff, and it works on so many things at once. He's incredibly efficient in what he does. He's extremely skilled. He's incredibly humble. I would love to meet this man in real life at some time, just to be able to grab a drink with this guy, because he was so incredibly nice to talk to. And that's what I see with other people high up in the industry. They are extremely humble. They are extremely nice. And then you have Marko Djurdjevic, he's an art director, and he is just all right. Let's take a look at your portfolio.
Let's destroy it. I love it.
But he never says it's shit. He's always like, all right.
No, it's always constructive. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I would prefer someone that is extremely demanding and rips apart someone's portfolio, but is constructive, than someone who gives you what you. It's always the difference between what you want to hear and what you need to hear, and again, I think in the industry, we got a lot of toxic positivity problem inside the industry, but also around it with all the applicants, all of that. I've seen so many people, especially on LinkedIn, well, I don't understand. I got great reviews for my portfolio. Everyone is telling me that my work is fine. I cannot even get an interview. Let's have a look at the portfolio. You look at the stuff and you're like, yeah. No disrespect, but no wonder you're not getting an interview, because it's missing stuff. And even when I'm doing calls and audit with people, some people are like, I never heard about that. How? This is basic. This is just the basic, like fitting production, solving problems, showing iterations, storytelling, things like that. Everything that is being said in those audits is so basic to me. And I'm so baffled to see that some people got tons of reviews, even paid one, and never heard of that. It's like, yeah, do this, focus on that, on the rendering. Nobody gives a shit about the rendering. It's easy to fix with the proper method, but fundamental flaws in the portfolio needs to be highlighted. And yes. so many people also with that cult of gaining likes on ArtStation, chasing the trends. You see people that are getting thousands of likes per picture, they cannot get a job. and they don't understand why it drives them mad.
That's probably because there is a lack of understanding of what's needed, and nobody's saying that. So you're completely blind to that part, and I think that's a major problem with a lot of portfolios as well. I mean, my portfolio definitely needs a big ramp up for quite a while now, even though I do like a lot of the work that's on there. But I know it's most cases it's still lacking quite a lot of iteration, mainly because most of the work that's on there is my personal stuff, because most of the stuff I've worked on is under NDA and I'm not allowed to show it yet.
Yeah.
And my personal stuff, I mostly forget to record most of the process. So I just have some of the so I have like 100 images where I might have written down all kinds of issues that I need to address my own thing, and then I forgot to put that in into my Photoshop file, so I forget where I have it once I've done it, and I was like, I have no clue where this is.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't do that from a professional level. I actually have tons and tons and tons of variants of iterations of starships. For example, right now for Stellaris, where one of those designs went through multiple iterations and feedback rounds, trying to figure out what's needed, and from small to big changes. But in a lot of my personal stuff, you don't get to see a lot of it, and that's mainly because I tend to forget it, because that's not because my personal stuff is usually, I got a great idea, I'm gonna see if I can make it, and then I make it, and then I finish it, and it's cool, and it works well, and I can present it well, and then I'm done with it. Or and 90% of the time, I don't show what I've done because I don't think it's good enough, or so I'm trying to change that by uploading the sketches I do.
Yeah.
And the sketches have given me a ton of attention, especially from the professional side.
Yeah.
I've been getting job offers. I've been asked to create a masterclass. To me, it's just a simple sketch, but for a lot of people, they like it because it shows a very early stage of thinking.
Important to show early sketches, early research. It's not about making it look fancy. It's just about making it understandable by people. And it's also what Vincent Meunier was talking about last time, the importance of breaking down your work, explaining how you think. The more you're transparent about that, the more trust you can establish with studios, and the more they can figure out if you will be a good fit or not.
Yeah, and that's why I've been trying to upload a lot more sketches also, so I can explain better what I do and how my thinking process is.
So important.
And that's why I need. I'm going to be working on a major project. I am actually working on a major project where I actually do a lot of that stuff. So I can show, all right, so here's the final stuff. This is all the design work and everything, and then you have the entire thinking process behind it. But that is still in development because it takes a while. Because I mostly work on that in the weekends or when I have time, because I am also doing a full-time job. So,
yep. All right. I think we got a lot of things handled. Any final words you want to have?
No, I think I've said everything I wanted to say, and everything is out there.
It was amazing, man. It was great. A lot of spicy subject right there.
Yeah, but I think that's important to address, because if you don't, you create bubbles and echo chambers, and that brings only problems. So
there's a lot of
challenge ideas,
taboos. It's kind of good to break taboos. Again, it's about breaking this kind of toxic positivity. And I know some stuff are uncomfortable. Again, what is even more uncomfortable is following bad advice that makes you feel good but don't get you anywhere. You waste a lot of time. You crash on the doors of the industry. You don't understand why. Gets you mad. And it takes you a lot of time to realize that, okay, it's because of that or that bad advice. And in any case, the damage is done. So yeah, I'm all for ripping off the band-aid as fast as possible. It hurts a bit, but then you see a bit more clearly, hopefully.
Yeah.
So
I would also suggest don't do that with everybody yet. Do that when they're ready for it.
Yeah, definitely. If
that can be a major pitfall.
Giving unsolicited, brutal advice can be the best way to lose someone or to antagonize that person. So you really need that person to be ready for it. And as sad as it sounds, the way I'm going to say it, some people, they need to kind of crash a bit on whatever they want to achieve before being able to listen or being at the right moment to listen to certain things. So for everyone struggling, I know it sucks, but sometimes it's also part of the process. And it's going to make you more receptive to certain things. I remember, for example, even in my life, when I discovered certain self-help group or way of life or things to implement in my life or in my work, all the time you tell yourself, I wish I knew that 10 years ago. But at the same time, there's a reason you were not knowing that 10 years ago. It was that you were probably not ready to hear about that or to implement it. So a lot of things tends to arrive at the right time. Unfortunately, the DeLorean still do not exist. And we cannot get back in time to implement that. But all that matters is what you do right now with it.
Yeah, I've been always thinking about what I would have done differently so many years ago. And it's always like, with all the knowledge I've accumulated right now, I would have done a lot of things differently. But that's just part of the learning process. If you can think about that, that you should have done things differently when you were young, or that you cringed for the fact for the things you've done a couple years ago, that means you are growing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Just one last question before wrapping that up. Who do you recommend for the next podcast?
Who would I recommend?
Except Bjorn Jury, of course.
I would say I think it could be interesting to have either David Kay
for sure,
or Mike Jelinek.
Oh, interesting.
He is an incredible designer, and he has an incredible insight. So I would say if you can get him on the podcast, that'd be incredible.
That would be amazing, yeah.
Or Jan Ursel or Emmanuel Shu, who also have their own podcast, but that would also be...
We need to have them at some point.
Yes.
to make a collab with their own podcast.
Yeah, you could. That would be great if you can get those people on.
It would be amazing.
I might have like 100 other names I might recommend, but let's keep it simple.
All right. Thank you so much, Marnix.
All right. Thank you for having me.